Greetings, career crazy. By PC, pod or pad, you are listening to Paid to Play, and quite possibly watching it on YouTube as well. I am Rob Farker, host of the podcast, and I want to help you monetize your madness by sharing the stories of folks who are taking the things they love doing and earning incomes from them, no matter how silly, geeky, or odd. Now, as some of you may well know, this podcast is supported by a bunch of lovely folks on Patreon, the crowdfunding platform that allows creatives to earn regular incomes from the things they love doing. One of the reward levels that I offer is one-on-one chats over the web for about an hour, where I can help you brainstorm your paid play and how exactly you're going to go about monetizing your madness. Now, one of the folks who backs the podcast at the Backer Brainstorming level, one of the folks is actually kind of the wrong thing to say, because it's two people who fund me at that backing level. The Diamonds, Birdy and Mike, who have been hosts for two hosts. I am really scrambling my words today, aren't I? Who have been guests for 2 episodes of the show. It's been fantastic having them on, and it's even more fantastic having them supporting the show. And it's great to get together with them on a monthly basis to talk about how they're going and anything that they might need help with. One of the things that they are looking at a little bit is podcasting. They've got a couple of ideas themselves amongst the other initiatives that they're working on. And they usually ask me, as I've been doing Pay to Play for 5 years now, for a little bit of help and some advice on what it takes to put a podcast together. And after our last chat, as I record this, it's the morning of Monday, May the 29th, 2017, Australia time, and we got together around 24 hours ago for our Backer Brainstorming chat, and we touched on a couple of topics which we kind of realised afterwards might be good for other people to hear. So with their permission, I am presenting the first of the 2 things that we touched upon during the brainstorming session that we would like to share with you. And that was when Birdy specifically asked me a question about podcasting. Anyway, I will quit waffling and let Birdy lead us in, and I hope you find this interesting for you as someone who is looking to share their content online and maybe get into podcasting themselves, and maybe just struggling a little bit with what your show's about, particularly if you are looking to interview people for your show, and how you kind of make not just your guest but also your listening audience feel welcome in your show. Enjoy.
Well, one thing that is helpful and over time would be, as you think of them, tips on the interviewing, because and I was mentioning this to B. Berry, and she sounded receptive to it, and at least thought, because she also gave us some good advice coming from a small indie dyer, which we didn't have access to that perspective, and it's really helped us kind of like, okay, no, we need to scale back, but we can do it in this way, and it'll actually strengthen the box, and cool. So, but I mentioned about interviewing the various people, like the various dyers and the various authors, and like you and Evie, things like that, the people that help bring the box to life, and like that. So having some tips on how to create that wonderfully inviting environment that you do. I know. One of those, accept the compliment.
No, thank you very much. That is good. It's sort of like, it's the kind of thing where I think, I'd blush and say, but, it's good to know that I am listening to the episodes of the show. It is, I am creating that thing where it does sound like, because hey, I'm a little bit Aspergian. I sometimes tend to ramble on a little bit, and I kind of worry that perhaps I am going off on tangents and maybe being a little bit closed off and geeking out, sort of geeking out in that regard. And maybe turning people off. I mean, from the looks of things, the way the podcast figures have been going for the last couple of months, that appears to not be the case. The first thing that immediately leaps to mind is just genuine enthusiasm, because I think aside from the odd rare case, I've not really had anybody on the show that I wasn't genuinely interested in chatting to. I think the main trick is just balancing that enthusiasm. And if you make a bond with your guests, then it's okay if you guys sort of go off on a little bit of a tangent, and it's as long as it's within the realm of just that broader discussion that you're having. One of the things that really helped me a bit with Paid to Play was kind of finding the emotional core of what I was trying to get at with the show. Because, I mean, I know that I've known for a little while, I mean, pretty much from the first episode, that it's been about trying to encourage people to do their things and make money from them. But I'd sort of ask people questions about their path and that sort of thing. And I think it was the chat with Bernadette Bentley when something finally took solid shape. And it's this idea of actually having to fight the external and sometimes internal pressure. I mean, kind of like what you were saying earlier on, Birdy, that internal drive to be responsible, to get a secure day job with the benefits and everything else, as opposed to trying to go, do the thing that a lot of people consider lunacy, because they just don't believe that like what we were talking about with pop star talents, and being polished and all that kind of thing. Because of that sort of line, and you can't see people's history, people tend to assume that, that talent is unique and that it's only the people who are superhuman who get through. Whereas at least sharing your story in the early days people get to see the nuts and bolts and the missteps that you went through, and that then makes them think, maybe, okay, yes, I see that this person is doing hard work, that they are making mistakes, but it looks more possible to me now. And just that struggle against that thing that says, be safe, be air quotes responsible, don't put yourself out there because you're only going to hurt yourself and it's not going anywhere. And all those, I think, who was I listening to recently? There was a chat on a show, funnily enough, another alumnus of the podcast Discovery Center, a lady by the name of Dana Ferrant. She has a show that she puts out every week that, funnily enough, she calls Inner Dominatrix, which is all about, which actually is not really all about being a dominatrix, but it's about being, at least harnessing that kind of power and energy and self-confidence within you. And her most recent guest was talking about how family can mean well and they want to protect you, but they are so protective that they inadvertently, and these are my words here rather than hers, but that was the gist I took out of it, that they inadvertently close you down in the name of being safe. That people talk about bubble wrap. They sort of put the bubble wrap around you and try and make you and think that you need to go for what seems to be the proven survival method, if you know what I mean, rather than embracing your inner nut and taking steps, however small they may be. So that was, I think, once I had that core, because Bernadette started talking about how, and I think I maybe even asked her during her chat that all these wonderful things that she's doing. She's an actor, she's a host, she's a cosplayer, she's a fashion show organizer and host. She's started another business for herself with bedazzling things. And, I said, when she goes home and whatever, does she still get a lot of people telling her, sort of giving her this odd look and saying, well, that sounds, pat on the head, Bernadette, that sounds very nice, but why don't you? And having that
Got
there,
a real job. Really.
Exactly. And just that thing, because that's, to me, I think that's kind of the emotional core of what I'm trying to get at with Paid to Play, to address that pressure and talk about, you
Yeah.
know, what people do about it, because that's, you know, people will talk about strategies and tactics and business ideas, like that sort of thing. Unless you can do something about your mindset and your emotional, being aware of your emotional state and how you're responding to these things, all the tactics in the world. I mean, I can listen to podcasts like Internet Business Mastery, and we've got these two guys who are kind of past that point, and they're driven, and they will talk about strategies and how they engage and all that kind of stuff. And if you're not there, it just sounds more like it's more superstar stuff. When you're looking at doing your podcast, just try and find maybe the question that you're looking to get answered, and not just a tactical question, not an intellectual question, but the thing that you want, that if you opened up a bit, you would admit that you struggle with. So you want to ask other people about that thing, about that struggle that you have, and what they do about it, and get them to tell their stories of the struggle. Because on one hand, it's easy to get a solution, but sometimes you need to tell people that you're having the same problem as them, so that once they identify in their gut, holy crap, this person is just like me, and then you turn around and say, here's what I started doing, they'll start thinking, oh, I can start doing these things. They might work. You know what I mean? So I think, you know, find that point of empathy and of trying to answer your question with your guests. And I think that if your audience will feel that and identify it, and again, to borrow a term that gets bandied around a lot lately, resonate with it, then that's your environment that you're looking for right there. That place between having that comfort zone of chatting with a friend, but also that uncomfortable opening up and being vulnerable, which I think is one of the things you were aiming at anyway with the topic of midnight conversations. But yeah, I think that's what you really need to do, is aside from just an idea, which for me was paid to play, people taking the hobbies and having fun with it, finding the emotion behind the idea, which is what stops everybody else, and, you know, what stops yourself from doing these things. And that's, you know, that's the emotion, and address that, and then talk about the tactics. So yeah, those are my main things. Be friendly, you know, establish that rapport with your guests, and let them know ahead of time that that's really what it's about, because odds on they'll want to talk about it anyway. They'll be willing to open up a little bit. And I think that's how you're going to create what you're looking for, if that makes any sense.
I think so, yeah. Speaking of taking notes, I am taking notes on that. So if I'm a little quiet, that's part of why.
No worries.
So support and warn, yeah, about, let them know.
Yeah, because I mean,
kind of letting them know, so sort of letting them know about that core question.
Yeah.
And okay, and then the fact that we would like to go deep. I'm not sure if that's exactly the language, but
just say you want to talk about it, explore it a little, and explain. If you explain why you're doing it, not just for your own sake, but for an audience, then odds on they will go, okay, yeah, I will talk about that, because now I see, you know, when you ask people to come on your podcast and you explain why you're doing it, usually they will want the help. Even, I mean, that's the incredible thing about Pay to Play that I discovered. I have just asked people, and they've given a couple of hours of their time gratis, for no other reward aside from they can perhaps also use that as a marketing tool of their own, because it allows their people to get to see through my questions a side of them that they might not otherwise. But if you come from a place of honestly wanting to help your listeners, it is good odds that they will turn around and say, okay, yeah, I'm in. And then it's just a matter of organizing the time and sorting the logistics out.